Well, guys, it seems pretty safe to say that Highguard was a humongous failure. And really, the proof is in the pudding. Falling from a concurrent player count of 90,000 players on Steam on release day to averaging somewhere around 1,000 players on any given day, only a couple weeks removed from release, it just is obvious that this game is just not catching on. And the reviews mirror this performance, sitting at around 63 on Metacritic and an abysmal 2.6 user score. To make matters even worse, only a couple days after release, the studio Wildlight Entertainment was hit with massive layoffs, highlighting the dire situation of Highguard and ultimately a rare universal agreement in the gaming community that the game was a major flop. And in the wake of all these layoffs, many of whom were affected by the layoffs took to Twitter to deliver their own analysis of why they think the game failed and some explaining on how the situation felt unfair to them. And don't shoot me, but I kind of agree with them, but not completely. But before we really get into the weeds, I think the most important thing we can do is to define the terms that we're talking about. Specifically in this video, I wanted to discuss what does it mean to be fair, and what does the word fair mean in the context of gaming, and I guess in the context of the business of gaming. So Webster's dictionary defines the word fair as marked by impartiality and honesty, free from self-interest, prejudice, or favoritism. Now, if we follow the specific words of this definition, I think it's really accurate to describe the expectations of the wildlife developers if you look at their statements that they made on Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever it may be. Now, where I think this can get kind of touchy for game developers is that this is their career, this is their job, this is their work. And obviously, I think in any industry you work in, you want people to appreciate the work that you've done if you've done a genuine effort to do a good job. And I can think of nothing more frustrating when you genuinely, in the depths of your soul, believe that you did a good job and that you worked really hard and gave a very genuine effort on something and it is completely shit on. There's nothing more frustrating than that, because you did your best and it was not enough. And so from an interpersonal perspective, on a very micro level, I do feel for these developers, especially for some of these developers who said it was their first game that they've ever developed and ever released to the public. However, when you broaden your scope and you think of the industry as a whole and the business of gaming, I think you can see and start to understand how Highguard failed where others did succeed. And you have to question what it means to be fair in the context of what do gamers want and how to run a business in this industry. And I think if you took a poll of all the gamers in the world and you asked them, hey, should we rate games fairly? You get like a 99% response saying, yeah, of course we should rate games fairly. But I think the fundamental truth is that almost nothing in life is fair. We can strive to be fair. We can strive to be just. And I kind of I'm in the legal profession, so I really see this firsthand. We try our best to get it right, but it's impossible to get it right. There are people sitting in jail right now that are innocent. There are people who are out on the street who should have been guilty, but we're human. We cannot do it. It's impossible for us to get it completely right. And I think the same logic applies to gaming and rating games. So this is where I'll depart from the Wildlight developers' logic. You shouldn't have been expected the gaming community to give you a shot. You should be glad that they even cared enough to give you a shot. And frankly, the only reason they gave you a shot was because you got the final spot of the biggest event in gaming year after year, which is now the Game Awards. And frankly, with this opportunity, you completely squandered it with the marketing of the game. Because anyone in tune with the gaming community right now would have known that multiplayer FPS hero shooters are kind of going through it right now. There's a lot of competitors in the industry, okay? And so by coming in, yes, you have this new idea with this new mode. But the fundamental question that gamers are going to ask you here is, why should we switch from our favorite games that we are spent so much time into and switch to play your game? So from a business strategy and a marketing strategy, you should have nailed that Game of the Year awards trailer. There was no excuse whatsoever not to have the best possible trailer you could have ever imagined right there at the last spot in the Game Awards. And I don't know about you guys, but I feel like trailers are kind of a lost art right now because I just feel like it's a lot of just gameplay footage, which is great. I love that. And I just haven't seen a really good hype trailer yet. That's like obviously not the actual gameplay, but it's like a cinematic hyping us up for the release. Now, I'm sure I'm wrong, but I just think older games really excelled at this, and probably because of television, how they're going to put ads on TV. But the best one I can think of off the top of my head is the Halo 3 announcement trailer for E3 2006. I mean, you see the scale of everything. You see the Covenant, the vortex in the sky, the arc opening up, and just you feel the magnitude of what's happening. And then the great audio soundtrack by Marty O'Donnell just is playing you up and hyping you up for the game. And then right at the end, you see finish the fight fall 2007, a call to arms to come play our game. Like, I feel like that's just missing. I have not seen that. Well, at the very least, I hadn't seen it in the Highguard trailer that they did at the Game Awards this year. It frankly just was a bad trailer. Like, it just did not hype you up at all. It didn't seem sick. I did not like the audio. And it was basically like, okay, so this is a mid Apex Legends on horses. That's what I took away from the trailer. And look, guys, frankly, that's just bad business. And so, yeah, I mean, I feel personally for these developers who are laid off, and I hope that their financial situation improves and they can find other jobs and learn from the mistakes of this game and make better games in the future, because that's how this all is supposed to work. However, for Wildlight Entertainment and the companies who invested in this game, you're being punished right now by the market for not giving the market what it wants. The market does not need another hero shooter. We have Apex Legends, we have Valorant, we have Overwatch, we have the Finals, which is kind of in its own different thing, but it's a popular FPS game too. We have all these multiplayer free-to-play FPS games that are competing for your time, and so you really needed to make it good. You need to give gamers a reason to play your game. Why is our game better than Apex Legends? That should have been the question that you sent. We're not trying to coexist with Apex Legends. We're trying to beat them and take all their players away from them. Or we're trying to beat Valorant and take all their players away from them. That's business. That's competition. And so the main point of all that is you got to earn it. And going back to that definition I said earlier of the word fair, it's marked by impartiality and honesty, free from self-interest, prejudice, or favoritism. Specifically of note, that free from self-interest part, there is nothing more in our own self-interest than what to do with our time. Eventually, I'll stop gaming. There won't be enough hours for me to play all the games that are ever released in the world. And so, obviously, you got to be intentional with what you play. But I'll stop gaming, you'll stop gaming. Everyone alive right now will stop gaming at some point in our life. And so, what are you doing, gaming company, to earn that time from us? And really what I'm saying is nothing new. And some of the greats in the industry have said this all along, and probably in an albeit nicer way. For example, in the newly released video on this exact topic, Laura Fryer, the former developer of Gears of War, talked about this. And so if you don't want some random Southern gamer talking about this, I would go suggest you watch this video of her and explaining what it took to make Gears of War, and they just were glad that people even played the game, in the first place. They spent their time to even try it. So frankly, I just kind of think this generation of game developers has the perspective all wrong. It's like almost like they're expecting us to owe them our time because they worked so hard on this game. The older generation, when the people who made Gears of War, the people who made Halo 1, 2, and 3, just the masterpieces of I would say the golden age of gaming, they had that hard competitive mentality. Whereas I think we've gone soft in this generation and we're trying to coexist with too many games. Okay, and I just don't think that works at all. I think you need to have competition, and you need to be ruthless in trying to grab that attention back from the gamers. And this is because competition just makes everything better. And that is how our system is supposed to work. I mean, it's essentially diamonds are made under pressure. So as I kind of end this video, I just want to convey the logic in the most simplest way I can. And it's, have you ever tried to get your friend to play a game that you like? Isn't it kind of hard? Don't you kind of have to beg them to play it and try to give incentives for them to play it with you? I mean, I'd say typically it goes like, hey, I'll play Apex with you if you will come and play Elden Ring Night Rain with me. Or I'll buy this game if you buy this game. That's kind of how it goes sometimes, at least with my friends, you know, because we're all in different games. We like different kinds of games. And so if it's difficult at that micro level right there with me and my friends, why can't you apply that logic to the gaming industry as a whole and convincing people with your marketing to play your game and to buy your game? So really, to round this whole video out, it's all about expectations. I don't think expecting gamers to play your game and to be a fair judge of your game is really a reasonable strategy. You should expect people to point out all the bugs, all the mistakes that you're going to make when you release something to the public. And I think that's just good strategy and good business. Now, here's where I will agree with the Wildlight developers. I do think it is a better game than like the Metacritic score at a 63 lets on. I don't think it's as bad as everyone is saying. You know, it runs well. There's really been no issues I've had or bugs that I've seen. Besides, there's been a couple of times the game has crashed or I've lagged out of a game, but the game runs pretty smoothly for the most part. I played a lot of games, and so I do think some of the core gameplay is fun, like raiding people's bases and kind of reinforcing your base, but I don't think it's really fleshed out, and it just needs more time in the oven to really get right. Now, the problem is I think it is a little too close to Apex Legends, and it's basically just a worse version of Apex. Like, the gunplay is not as good, the movement is not as fluid, and none of the build abilities are as good as the abilities in Apex, frankly. I mean, there's some cool abilities in there, but I think they just made it too similar, and this could have just been a game mode in Apex. Which makes me wonder, would this game have been more successful if it was a full premium experience like Halo 3? You know, if you had a campaign, a multiplayer, maybe some custom games in there? I think maybe the answer would be yes. I mean, you saw the downfall of Splitgate really on the same exact trajectory as Highguard here, and I think so many people expected a campaign in Splitgate and didn't get it, and were incredibly disappointed to see another battle royale. So I don't know really what the analytics guys are telling you, but there is a big disconnect in the games that are being made and what gamers want, in my opinion. But frankly, I mean, I think this opinion could be subject to criticism because, you know, if you look at the top charts on PlayStation, you just see a bunch of like slop games like Call of Duty, Fortnite, just a bunch of free-to-play live service games, you know, Call of Duty Warzone, you know, all those things in there, and microtransactions galore. And so it's like, at some point, gamers are also to fault for spending their money on slop. So, you know, I think when we start to get into the realm of hypotheticals, it gets really hard to say, you know, the game would have 100% better if it had a single player campaign, or if they went a different route with the game mode that they selected here, like if it was a battle royale, for example. But I think with a single player campaign point, it would have been at least a little bit unique for FPS hero shooters to have a campaign. And I think it would have been a good conduit for us to learn the abilities of the characters and to kind of learn the universe of Highguard and the backstories of each character. I think that could have been pretty interesting. And this game is from the creators of Titanfall, and I think they did a really good job in Titanfall 2 introducing through BT the different kinds of Titans you can use in the multiplayer mode, which is the main mode of Titanfall 2. And also through the story, they introduced us to the world of Titanfall, and that led on to Apex Legends, and people love the world, and the campaign was really, really well received. And so I think the final verdict on Titanfall 2 was that the campaign did everything it could to bolster the multiplayer experience, because you could get introduced to the different types of Titans, the movement and the gameplay mechanics before you hop into that main multiplayer mode, and you're not completely caught off guard. You know, you're used to the weapons, you're used to what you can do, and now the difficulty's gone up because you're doing some PvP. And, you know, I think if Overwatch had done the PvE campaign like they promised, they would have been in a better position before right now. But now they're trying to come back a little bit, and that's not a good thing for Highguard because it's a hero shooter that they're competing with. And as I said earlier, Highguard should be like, we want all the players from Overwatch to play our game. So there's just a disconnect. It's just too concentrated, in my opinion, right now with the kind of game that Highguard was trying to be as an FPS hero shooter. I'm not saying it's impossible to succeed, and I'm applaud them for some of the recent things that they've done, like they're releasing a new quick raid mode basically where they're removed the looting phases. They've added ranked pretty quickly, and they, to much praise, added that 5v5 raid mode that was actually super fun because there's a lot of combat as opposed to the original 3v3, which I still don't think is as bad as people say. So really, to wrap this up, guys, the point is reasons to play the game. We have the best graphics, play our game. We have the best gunplay, play our game. We have the best competitive shooter, play our game. All those things are great reasons to play and to spend your time, okay? Highguard, I think it just struggles to define what that reason is and what sets it apart from everything else. I think it's like a solid mid 7 out of 10, 7.5 even at some points, because I do think it's fun and it has so much potential. You know, I think if the base attack and defend structure, like if you could put turrets up in places, or you could reinforce walls even further, like maybe a system like Fortnite where you have wood, brick, and metal rather than just normal wall and iron wall, I think that probably would have been better. But it's just kind of unfortunate because, like, if they just put it in the oven just a little bit longer, I feel like we would have gotten a good product. And if they did some of the things that I talked about, like maybe like a campaign or PvE option or something like that, I think that could have set yourself apart. Or if anything, the marketing, if that would have just been right, you know? And the reason it sucks is we should all want these games to be good. As the consumer, we should want as many good games as possible. So I don't think we should be rooting on these people's downfall. Now, they still need to do the things I've talked about: good marketing, good business practices, playing testing with the consumers that you're trying to target. All those things need to happen. And so I think the big point here is there has to be a reason. There has to be a call to arms. We are a better version of Rust base raiding. You know, in Rust, you have to gather all your stuff to raid the base. In this, it's all about the base rating. We have it for you already set up. It's all about your personal skill. What about that reason? And so with that, I think that just rounds out the video. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. And if you stay to the end, please let me know what you like and what you dislike about this video and how I can make this content better for your enjoyment. If you'd like to see more from me, hit that subscribe and that bell notification button, and I'll see you guys in the next one.